This is the sourdough loaf that your Super Bowl party needs. First, you start with a cutout of the Super Bowl logo and you just add some flour around it to give you an outline. Then you're going to score your loaf along those outlined edges so that you get the entire logo look here. Then you want to fill in the rest of the logo with the lines, and you want to do a long score all along the outer edge of the loaf. This allows your loaf to still get a great rise after baking. Now that the scoring is done, we're going to move on to making the homemade spinach artichoke dip. One thing I always do is I always use fresh shredded cheese whenever I can in any recipe. So here I am shredding Parmesan cheese and mozzarella cheese to use in the dip. Next, I'm going to mash up some garlic so that way I can get the outside off of them, and then mince them so that I can use those in the recipe as well. I actually started mincing garlic by hand recently when my garlic press broke, and I realized it actually doesn't take any time at all. I minced 3 cloves of garlic in less than 2 minutes and was able to have fresh, fragrant garlic for this recipe. Next, it was time to chop the artichoke hearts. I bought already quartered artichoke hearts and then just chopped them into small pieces because I prefer spinach and artichoke dip with smaller pieces of both of those. Once I was done chopping them, I realized that even after draining them, there was still so much liquid. So I got out my strainer and I just pressed them into the bottom to get any extra liquid out. I also squeezed them with my hands, and that seemed to work really well. Next, I took the spinach and I did the same thing. The spinach was already chopped, which made this easy, but once it was thawed, it definitely needed squeezed out so that way the dip wouldn't become too liquidy. Now it was time to move on to mixing the base for the dip. So I took 1 block of 8 ounces of softened cream cheese and mixed in 1/3 a cup of sour cream and 1/3 a cup of mayonnaise. And then I just beat those in my stand mixer until they were well combined and a little bit fluffy. Now it won't get super fluffy, but it was just enough to tell that they were mixed very, very well. I then took the cream cheese mixture and I added in 1 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese and 1 cup of mozzarella cheese, as well as the chopped artichoke hearts and the chopped spinach. Mixed together all of these until they were fully and well combined. Then I sprayed an 8 by 8 inch baking dish with some cooking spray and spread the mixture into the pan evenly. Lastly, I added 1/2 cup of mozzarella cheese and spread it evenly on top of the dip that was already in the pan. And then I baked it at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes because I like when my dip is nice and bubbly and crispy on top. Now that our beautiful Super Bowl sourdough loaf is done, it's time to turn it into a bread bowl. Here, I cut off the top very carefully, which was a little more difficult than I expected. I didn't want to touch the top of the loaf and mess up the design, so I had to be very gentle with how I did this. I then use a sharp knife to cut along the inside edge of the loaf so that way I can easily get the center out to create the bread bowl. I then take my hands and I lift out the middle because I didn't want to risk cutting through the bottom of the loaf and then compromising it. Once I had the bread fully out, I began to slice it into strips and then into smaller pieces. I then put all of these pieces onto a cookie sheet and bake them on broil for just a few minutes until they are nice and crispy and better for dipping. Once the dip is done and the bread bowl is ready, I spoon the hot dip into the bread bowl just as you see here. And then what I'm going to do is use a spoon to mix it all around. That way it is all evenly spread out and looking great inside of the bread bowl. Once you are done doing this, you're going to arrange all the toasted pieces around the bread and use this Super Bowl top as the lid for your bread bowl loaf. And here you have an incredible themed dish to take to any Super Bowl party. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss any of our videos.